Michael Hernandez, Pinnacle Firearms Training, Defensively Minded, how core skills are used in advanced shooting applications. Welcome to the second season of Can We Chat? This podcast was made possible by our sponsors, FT3, Orange County's premier indoor shooting range, and Pinnacle Firearms Training, CCW, Fundamentals, and Advanced Gun Handling. Live defensively minded. What's going on? My name is Paul G., Chief Safety Officer for the IDPA. This channel will help you clarify IDPA rules, shooting techniques, and keep you updated on the newest gear and what's going on in the shooting community. If you're new here, consider subscribing. Please welcome back to the podcast my dear friend and longtime shooting coach, Michael Hernandez.
Hey Paul, how you doing, man? Good morning, sir.
Thank you for roughing the traffic all the way out here.
There's a lot of trucks. There's a lot of trucks. A lot of trucks and rain are my favorite thing.
I don't think they decided which lane to drive in, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, the map thing took me kind of a weird way, too. I'm like, there's some more efficient ways to get here.
So, range manager for FT3.
Yeah.
So he's one of my home range
Stanton, California.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, best range in Orange County.
You're doing that. You're a founder of Pinnacle Firearms Training.
Yeah, defensively minded at Pinnacle.
Defensive minded. What does that mean?
What does defensively minded mean?
How'd you come up with that?
How did it come? Well, it's interesting because there's a long history there where Pinnacle came from. There was something else a long time ago, which was a little quick history. It was originally Ladies Shooting League. We started. I got kind of wrapped up into this whole women's dedicated thing, which I absolutely adore and love, and it was a great program. One of the interesting parts here in the state of California is they like to enforce the law that you can't have dedicated women's programs without allowing men into them, which wasn't a problem for me. Although a number of programs, there's a group of guys that run around to ladies' nights and bar nights and even shooting events that are women's dedicated and try to force their way into them. And if they don't get what they want, they end up suing people. So there was a couple lawsuits involved and stuff. Nothing that I was involved in, but prior to that, we were already starting to integrate a lot of guys into it. Just because the women base was great, but they were like inviting their boyfriends and their husbands.
Right.
And so it just so it was really hard to maintain a ladies shooting league that was co-ed. It just didn't make a lot of sense. So, and we were shifting a lot to different stuff. Our basic, we started fundamentally, it's just a basic class, teaching people basic. And I wanted to do more things because I had more skill set than that. And I really wanted to get people doing more. So we changed a couple of years ago, and it just happened to coincide with some of the other stuff. So it worked out really well.
Right.
So we went with Pinnacle. And because we really do I believe that when you come to our class, you really are getting some of the best training that you can get out there for the specific things that you're doing.
I would have to agree.
Well, I appreciate that. So, we cover a really wide gamut of stuff for people. We have classes for all levels, but we really try to get people where they need to be. And it all, from competition to defensive stuff to CCW to everything. So I take the advantages of the trainings that I've had over my career and the opportunities that I've been given to work with some very, very special people and learn some very, very special things and get to translate that back to my students.
We all have. We come across great coaches. You are one of mine.
Thank you.
My foundation is rock solid because of you.
Oh, wow.
And every time I take a year off from the classes and so forth, only because I compete, but I always come back.
You do.
I need to brush up all the times. They're I consider them tune-ups, and especially when I have to change guns.
Yeah.
So this year I moved up from compact carry guns to full size again, and it's almost like it was a whole different gun again.
A little bit. People underestimate how much changing a firearm, because I get students that come in and like every time I see them, I might see them like 3 times in a week.
Yeah. And
they'll have a different gun every time, and they struggle through the whole thing. And it's like I always recommend to students, like, if you participate at a good pace, you come a lot.
Right.
Try shooting that gun for every single course for maybe a month minimum, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And then change guns. I mean, I can flip between guns every now and then, but I'm not. We all have a favorite gun,
right?
That we all our go-to gun. I have 2 go-to guns, and but even when I go and you look in the safe, you go, I haven't played with that one for a while, so you pull that out, and you're just like, Oh, yeah, I mean, you can shoot it, but you're just like, it doesn't feel right. You know, you're not in tune with it. You're not. It's not you. It's not a good dance partner. Really, you don't know what's kind of going on.
Well said. Absolutely. Because I mean, different size, different lengths, different diameters, different widths, and so forth.
Well, the grips are different. Excuse me. The grip is different. The triggers are different. Yeah, I mean, even the draw, when you go to draw a compact gun, the feel of the draw is completely different than when you're pulling a 5-inch gun out of the holster and with a light on it and everything else. So, and the weight of presentation, everything changes. I mean, as a good shooter, which you are, you know,
thank you.
I take zero credit for you. You have a good natural ability, but you feel that in your presentation, and things are off a little bit. You know, or if you have even the differences in sighting systems on them and things like that, all those things add up. Yes, you can still perform. Yes, you're still going to hit the target, but from a competitive standpoint or from a psychological standpoint, a good shooter can feel those things. You're like, it's a little off. The holster draw is a little different. It's in a slightly different location. It's a longer draw to get out of the holster. So there's a lot of things change when you switch guns around a whole lot.
So when I first started shooting, my excuse was I want to be proficient at all kinds of firearms.
Yeah.
And for me, what I found out was that just got me more confused.
Okay.
So,
I'm
but
sorry.
You're absolutely. Now I'm versed at it, but you know, I'm good at shooting a lot of things, but I'm just not an expert at shooting one thing. And so I see where you're coming with that. You got to stick with it. You have to allow it to become part of you in order for you to actually master the firearm. What do you think?
I agree in a lot of ways. I mean, it's a really easy transition, I think, from a pistol to say a AR platform.
Okay.
If you're taught correctly.
Yes.
Because there's the problem is that people look at that and go, oh, it's so different. Everything's so different. But it's really not. If you look at it and you equate it correctly,
yes.
And I do feel that the way that I teach you how to shoot an AR, we equate the gun in so many ways that it kind of clicks for them really quickly. And I do believe that shooting a pistol makes you a better carbine shooter.
How so?
Because the hardest thing you can do as a shooter is shoot a pistol. It's absolutely the hardest thing to shoot.
No, I have to agree.
Okay?
Right.
Because it's either super tiny. It's, you know, you can put a long barrel on it, but it doesn't really necessarily make you any more accurate because now you've got a whole different weight differential.
Right.
So if you can get to the point that you're consistently working that gun in a good fashion, and I really shy away from the term of mastering it. I don't think you master any of these platforms. You're constantly working at them.
Right.
But you become very proficient at it. Going to a carbine or a rifle, it's a lot simpler because if you have those good core fundamentals to start with off a pistol, and if you can manage a pistol accurately at distance, we're not talking 5 yards and 7 yards, we're talking 25 yards or beyond, then the rifle becomes very simple to do because you just translate those fundamentals.
Your concepts are they're transitional. You can go from a rifle to a pistol.
Right.
It's just the contact points are different.
The contact points can be a little bit different. They're not significantly different. If you start right and understand the base ground on them, then you're just making small adjustments. But if you try to treat them the same way, you know, one of the things, I mean, like a simple example of that is when we talk about the charging handle and the bolt, right? Okay, well, now we're not talking about slide anymore.
No.
But that's where people are like, oh, I don't get it. It's like, well, just think of, you know, we just try to break it down for them that the bolt is the slide of a handgun, right? Fundamentally, it's the same. I mean, you can shoot a rifle holding it by the grip the same way you can that. We're just extending a hand forward, and now we have the bolt. Well, we can't grab that slide because it's hot. So we have this other thing called a charging handle, and as soon as you equate that, it's like you have to do the same thing with the bolt and the charging handle that you'd have to do with the slide of your handgun. It kind of clicks for people. I figured that one out, I don't know, a couple of years ago. I had a class that just wonderful students, but it just wasn't clicking for them. They just, because it was, you know, one of them was complaining. Again, this was based off of one of the women's classes, which are always great because you really have to learn when you take people who have the motivation to learn how to shoot and want to do that, but have no fundamental background. I mean, I think it's kind of that most men coming in have some general fundamental egotistically driven background about firearms, right? We either played Army as a kid or, they played first person shooters or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They all have, they know what they're doing. Right. My grandfather was in the Army, so I automatically already know how to shoot a rifle type of thing. But women come in and are like, I don't have any idea about any of this.
Right.
So teach me everything, but they don't have any connection points. Right?
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're like, it's a hand, great. So you teach them about a handgun, but then you move into a rifle, and if you can't reconnect the handgun, it's something new. But you take your average gun shooting guy who's never picked a gun up before, but he's played a first person shooter. He kind of has, you do this.
Yeah.
So sometimes my training comes from that is figuring out how to teach somebody something that has nothing to connect with.
So you so defensively minded is more coaching or is it more instruction?
Let's define the two. I think that's important for people to understand that there is a definitive difference. There's a definitive difference between instruction and coaching. Coaching is a lot of times you're taking somebody who already has a good base foundation, and maybe you're working on something specific with them. Like you and I have a good coaching and coachee. What's the student?
Coachee. I'm a coachee.
Coachee.
That could turn into something horrible.
Yeah, it's like I didn't have to take you to teach you how to shoot.
Right.
But what I'm helping you do is retune yourself, fine tune things. Or you come to me like I think we've worked. I know we've had time that you came to me one time. You're like, hey, I'm really having trouble making movement. Right. We did that.
Right.
So we kind of taught you how to dance salsa a little bit, and your movement improved.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of coaching to me is looking at somebody, working within their limitations or their areas and fine-tuning something specific.
Oh, okay.
Instructional training is taking somebody and either teaching them a new skill altogether that they don't have at any level, either a basic intro level, a fundamentals level, or an advanced level, or reworking those skills, keeping the advanced shooters, their fundamentals clean by taking them back down and working them back up again. Mostly that, I think, instructional is teaching new foundations, new skills, working those, honing those, building on those, and keep going forward. Where coaching is more, hey, I've already got a good person. Now we're just kind of touching base on things.
Yeah.
So if, typically you and I coach you on stuff, but if you were coming to me and say, hey, I really want to learn in, defensive combat rifle and transitions between pistol in a defensive environment, not a competitional environment, that would be an instructional thing because we'd have to go back and work on some different things. We would change some things. Okay. Right. Because it's interesting. I have a couple of competitional shooters who work with me, and they were doing one of my classes where we were doing stoppage drills, and they were going like, we never do this. I'm like, what do you mean you never do this? Like, well, we don't have to clear our guns. We don't have to do this. We don't have to do this in class. We don't change all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, so it was really new for them. Right. They can shoot just fine. They're very accurate shooters. Right. But those type of skills they didn't have. They just didn't have them. And I had another competitional shooter that I was at. He was running the drill. We do this drill in a couple of classes called Off the Axe, and it's a really good drill for driving home what happens when your gun doesn't go bang. Right. And he had this very particular way of clearing the firearm, and it was very inefficient, non-optimal. Right. And I kind of stopped him, like, where did you learn that? He goes, well, I don't know. I just, I don't have to do this in competitions.
That's a horrible excuse.
Yeah. I'm like, okay. So we taught him a new way to do it, right? Efficient way to do it, and a good way to do it, because he kept causing type 3s by what he was doing. And he was just like, yeah, I've never done that before. And it was interesting because another two sets of competitions were like, hey, we don't do this regularly.
That's funny you brought that up, because that's one of the reasons why I actually revisit you every year.
Because you forget how to clear your gun?
No. Well, aside from that, there were other classes, and I sat there and went, wow, I haven't done this in like years. When I first started, that's how I learned. For example, just for the past week, we had a class, or you had a training, and we went in there and we started shooting, and trigger manipulation. Right, I haven't done that, and I probably haven't done that for the whole year.
Well, you haven't been conscious of doing it.
Okay, that's true.
Hopefully you are shooting the gun and hitting targets, so we're manipulating your trigger. Right. You're just not consciously doing it.
Right. But when you were doing it, and you started us off slowly, right? And that was monotonous. I sat there and I'm like, I don't know if I could do this.
Yeah.
Right. And forced myself to do that. And I thought that in itself was difficult for me to do.
Yeah. When you take people with that don't go back and slow down occasionally and go back and revisit things. It's monotonous, but it's when you're having fundamental issues with trigger, and because you needed to relearn that trigger because that you're running
right
a 2011 for your full size, something like that.
All for the past 2 years it was the bug. Remember me playing with a little stupid bug, right? 6 shots. You're all laughing at me like, what are you doing? Right?
Well, because you're having issues with it because of the trigger. Because you came off a 1911 style trigger to this, terrible,
that
god awful trigger, and
and you're not the first to to bust my balls on that.
Which I think is great, though.
Man, that was the worst. The worst. Going from something that you actually carry every day to competition, I thought that was probably the biggest challenge I've ever had to do. Right, and then now I'm going back to a race gun, and I have to be careful because that trigger just goes boom. Yeah. And by the way, that was a great explanation to the class that you did on guns that were a lot more functional versus guns that are, that are everyday carry or stocked right out of the box type of thing, right? The breaking points, that was amazing. That was amazing. I thought that was that really drove it home.
Oh, well, good. Okay.
So
I'm glad I got somebody touched that class. That was a huge class too. That was bizarre.
I know. And thank you for allowing me to get in. I was like, wow, this is really busy in here.
It is. Well, it's pretty typical. That what you're referring to is a class we run at FT3 called Lead and Coffee. Yeah. You do have to be. We do have a program at FT3 where one of our biggest requests several years ago we started was, hey, can I draw from a holster? Because nobody lets me draw from a holster.
Yes.
So I started a program. Oh, it feels like a decade ago now. Called the Holster Draw, where it's basically the rules of holster. We developed a set of rules so we could basically get insured to do this. That's the trickiest things at ranges. People are like, well, how come we can't just shoot fast? It's like, because the insurance won't let us type of thing. We have these qualifications in our insurance. Insurance is incredibly hard to get for ranges. So and there's not a bevy of choices. There's like 2 companies in the entire country that insure ranges.
Oh yeah.
So you can't really, we go to them and propose stuff, and they come back like, no, or we'll do it, but it's going to cost you, $1 million a year to do.
So are they just looking at exposure for somebody getting hurt or for damage?
No, they don't. I don't think they really. I mean, they don't concern terribly about damage because they just know everything beyond the firing line is going to get hit.
Okay. But, and it does.
It does everything, and it's always funny. Just on a side note, when we get new staff members, and that's their hardest thing. One of their hardest things for them to conceive. They always come out like when they're first new RSOs, they're shooting everything. It's like, yeah, they do, and one of the things we do is we spend a lot of time fixing all that. So when you come in, we try to sometimes the range gets a little. I was just down there last night looking at some stuff, and I'm like,
because we shoot downrange.
Yeah, we shoot downrange,
and I'm like, sitting there going, now, how's that even possible?
Yeah, it certainly makes. There's some things I've seen that you go, I don't know how that happened. Yeah. So that I don't know, maybe it reemphasizes the Kennedy mystery bullet thing. Bullets go places that you're just like, how? Right. Because we see angles of entering on stuff. We're like, the only way we could figure out that could happen is they actually shot like across the range, you know. And it's like, but even then, or what's interesting to me is when we see the ones the other direction. Right. Like, how did that happen? Yeah. So, but back to the point. So the holster qualifier teaches you the rules that we need to have in place for you to be able to draw from a holster. It's more so that we also do teach you how to draw from a holster. Right. If you already know how to draw from a holster, Bryce Melendez now does that class for me. I did the class for a number of years, and Bryce took it over. So I trained Bryce. He's a phenomenal instructor in that class. He does a great job. But we also tune you up. We make sure you're safe with the draw, because a lot of people have a perception that their draw is really good, and it really isn't. Right. It's just they do small things that they're not aware of. And that's the biggest fundamental problem with most firearm stuff is people do things they're not aware of. So we make sure the draw is safe. Anybody can come in. Even if you already can draw, you're really just shooting a little bit to make sure you're safe, and then learning the things that we need to have in place for you to be able to perform that action during public hours. Sign all the documentation. Plus, you get to have some fun, because when you're in the holster class, I know Bryce runs a steel challenge. He's got a little, what do you call it? challenge target. You know, you shoot
Yeah.
both sides of it and try to compete against somebody. So it's
Okay.
fun for him. So
A tree.
Yeah, tree. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
And so once you get that, you're qualified to shoot holster. So we have limited holster hours, which allows you then to shoot a little bit faster. So our normal rate of fire is, you know, 1 every second or so. But when you're holster qualified, you're doing a holster stall, the table's up and out of the way, you can shoot 3-4 rounds, you know, very quickly. So we still have a lot of competition shooters come in. They use their timers and stuff. And they do that.
Now you understand that this is an indoor range.
This is an indoor range.
You're doing that, right? So wow, that's pretty good. I mean, I don't think you can do that anywhere else. So
I don't think so either. I think we're the only range in Orange County that lets you shoot from a holster. So the only thing that we don't allow you to do, you can come in. We have a number of guys that will, like they'll come in and they'll shoot and they'll do competition stuff. So they shoot really quick. They work out of their holsters, but you can work out of your appendix holster. You can work out of your concealed carry stuff.
Wow.
It allows you to get those repetitions in, which is good. And you can shoot, you know, closer. I mean, we also allow you at our range to shoot at 3 yards. We do that for CCW, obviously. Qualifiers, people panic. They come in, they're all panicked that, you know, well, you got to let me shoot at 3 yards because I got a qualifier coming up.
Yeah.
And it's like, why don't you just go shoot at 7? And if you're hitting at 7, 3's not going to be a problem.
Right.
But since they don't fundamentally understand that, and it's just easier to let them shoot at 3 yards.
You teaching anything, any classes on appendix draws and so forth?
Oh yeah. We have,
Really?
I have specific CCW class. I work CCW qualifications with Safe Defense with TJ Johnston.
Okay.
I don't do it independently.
The man, the myth.
The man and the myth. Yeah. TJ and I been together for over a decade working together. So I help him with all the CCW stuff, and I do it through there. It's just I don't do it independently because it's a nightmare with Orange County.
Oh, I can only imagine it.
But after your qualification, the actual, which is interesting because most CCW courses don't have anything to do with your holster. They because it's not a requirement for the state. The state expects you to carry a gun in a holster.
You know that's actually kind of scary.
But they do not require a qualification of drawing in a live fire from a holster. So as far as I know,
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong here in the comments, but as far as I know, of the 30 odd CCW instructors here in Orange County that are qualified by the Sheriff's Department, a lot of them do dry fire the holster in the classroom. They'll show you how to holster and pull a gun, but nobody shoots from the holster in the class. All Safe Defense shoots from the holster in the class, which can make for very interesting classes. For sure.
Right.
But it does give you that one skill that I don't think anybody else is really addressing. And it's the shooting portion of his class on the 2 days is based around the NRA's personal protection outside the home course.
So the county just worries about the gun then. They don't care about anything else.
Yeah, kind of. They really don't. They're very, the state of California, let's say the state of California specifically does not, there seems to be 2 CCWs or 3 CCWs in the country.
Right.
One is obviously constitutional carry.
Yep.
So states are like, sure, carry a gun. We're fine with it. And they may or may not have some minimal requirement, like, hey, just let us know that you've got one. Like, put your name and address down so if we find you. Then we have ones that are states like, for example, Nevada, that qualifies the shooter, not the firearm. So they qualify the shooter, and they're like, oh, you can carry whatever you want now because we know that you can actually shoot. So
really,
the course is based really more around the shooter's skill and not the firearm. So you can come in, you can rent a gun at the range, shoot the course of fire, provide and prove that you're proficient, take all the classes, get qualified, and they have no qualifier on. You don't have to list your guns. Like now here in California, it's all about the gun. Yeah. So because we actually have to list the guns, and you can have, now it's currently unlimited. A couple of years ago, it was funny. The reason it is now unlimited. It's a little cute backstory about Don Barnes. He's a great guy, great sheriff here in Orange County. Yeah. When he became sheriff, he personally has 20 some odd firearms that he likes to rotate through. I know this because I qualified him on all these guns. And he was very upset that there was only like 5 guns on the card. And so he went to his team and he's like, hey, how come there's only 5 guns on the card? And it's that typical bureaucratic government answer, because that's how many we can put on the card, And he's like, well, do we have a system for more than that? They're like, no, because that's how many we can put on the card. He's like, well, make a system because I want to have more than this on my available. So eventually they made a system. So it was a paper thing for a long time. So what happens is you get the hard card and you get this paper card that has all your other guns listed, which is extremely annoying because it's paper. So it never lasts very long. No. But you have to carry that. So here in California,
Yeah.
And in Orange County and all the other counties, you can only carry guns that are on your CCW. For example, in Nevada, the person has a CCW. They can carry whatever gun they want as long as it's
Right.
within limits. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think you can walk around with an AR pistol in Nevada, but here in California, it's really the guns. If the gun's not on your list and you have it on your person, you're actually violating the CCW conditions. So, which is interesting. So if you have more than 5, you got to carry a little paper thing. Well, they finally this year have moved to double hard cards. So you get another card, which is nicer from a standpoint.
I have space in my wallet for an extra card. Absolutely.
Me too. So I'm waiting for my renewal so I can get another card because my papers fall apart.
So, but in California, so when you test out for your CCW, right, you have to qualify for every gun, though.
Yes, you do. Yeah, every gun has to qualify, and the instructor takes. And what's interesting is the instructor takes responsibility for that. Those guns are compliant to California laws. Now, those have changed a little bit. California has gone through a lot of shifts, and especially Orange County has gone through a lot of its shifts in CCW. Right. It was for quite a while there. It was extremely strict. We collectively, the collective we as CCW instructors, push really hard to allow them to let us change recoil springs, because for a little bit of time there, they're like, you can't do anything to the gun at all.
No.
And we're like, yeah, but there's mechanical failures eventually. Right. I mean, you're gonna have to change the recoil spring. Right. And they're like, oh, okay. And then I think it was maybe last year, the year before, it all kind of blends. They finally were like, okay, yes, you can color the gun afterwards. When optics became an issue, yes, you can add an optic or not re-register the gun, things of that nature. So the only thing they've gotten, the only 2 real strict changes this year that have taken place is for a very short term there, they allowed what they call partner guns. So if you lived with somebody, you could each have one firearm. You like, say, you and your wife have both had CCWs.
Right.
You could have one of her guns that was registered to her on your CCW, and she could have one of your guns on her CCW. That was perfectly fine with Orange County.
Yes.
And that's why they introduced the primary gun thing. It couldn't be the primary gun.
Yeah.
And they've taken that away. So that's gone.
Okay.
They removed that. I'm not sure why, but they've done that. They've also restricted the fact now that, at least in Orange County, that you can only carry 2 CCWs at a time. I'd like to know the backstory on that. I really would.
For a different county.
No, in Orange County, the new restriction is you can have as many guns as you want, but you can only physically carry as CCWs 2 firearms.
Okay.
So, say for example, I was coming
at
from the
one
range.
time.
Yeah, I had a CCW on my person.
Yes.
Maybe I had a CCW available in my vehicle.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I had
backup gun.
A backup gun or a backup, or I just had a bag full of loaded firearms that are on my CCW that normally last year would have just been accessible to me. I can no longer do that, so I'd have to.
Wait, you carried a backup?
Well, you just no. Yeah, it's easier than mag changes, man. You just grab another gun.
I get it.
But So here's the scenario: I've got a gun in your person, you have a gun in the car, and maybe the third gun you have is in your range bag, but it's loaded. And it's accessible to you.
Yes.
Well, as a CCW holder, that's perfectly legal, except now it's not.
Yeah.
So you can only have 2 loaded, accessible firearms
in Orange County.
And I'm sure LA County is probably.
Oh no, you don't even want to know.
They're probably not. They're probably not even one. They're like, we just prefer you leave it at home. So that's not a state thing. That's a county thing. So we have compounding things. You have the state who sets up their standards. Which again is the firearms here in the state of California.
Yeah.
And then you have the counties that add their little things to it. But, on the plus side though, too, they don't, specifically care about capacity because the DOJ doesn't. There's no specifications about that, as long as it's legal, from that standpoint. But they also removed they used to be able to do multi-caliber. So say you had a 40 cal, you could either run a 357 SIG or you could run 40. Or if the gun was, say, like an M&P style, the barrels are interchangeable. So you could have a 9 and run a 4, whatever. You can't do that anymore. You can't list a multi-caliber anymore. Now it has to be caliber specific.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the major changes this year, but nothing detrimental.
Yeah, LA County, you don't even want to ask them the question. You just say, hey, thank you very much, and get the hell out of there. Right?
Everything's listed as a 22.
4 years waiting for mine. So I was like, what?
Really? You waited 4 years?
4 years. The first year it got turned down. Then Bruin.
I can see that.
Bruin passed. I applied, and they cashed the check. I didn't hear anything from them for a whole year. And
stop payment on.
I was going to give up, but next thing you know, by the way, this is your appointment, right? So then I went through that, and they began the investigation. That took another year.
Wow.
And finally, they said, you just need to come in. I'm like, okay, so this is my second interview? They're like, no, you're just going to pick up your card.
Oh.
And I went,
cool.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So I didn't even want to get into the specifics. So I just sat there, signed it, took it, and I just walked out of there. And
wow. I mean,
horrible experience.
I've been carrying with Orange County for probably close to a decade. So it was back in the dark days before things really opened up. It did take a long time.
Yeah.
I remember my first one took quite a while. But after that, it got better. And then there were some times that it was like, COVID was horrible. It was like, oh, you're renewing? That's fine. Yeah, maybe sometime. They actually like reset everybody. So everybody went a month or two, and then we started getting them in. But they've gotten to the point now, especially here in Orange County, that they're extremely efficient. And I always joke about this. It's a great term. Orange County is very liberal about firearms because our district attorney is very pro firearms, especially concealed carry, and our sheriff is. So he's worked tremendously hard to bolster that division, get the people they need, and they're processing very, very quickly.
So I'm just wondering why Los Angeles County is having such a hard time. Aside from they were only having, I believe that there was only less than 4 people working.
Yeah.
So,
well, in comparison, I believe, I don't know the latest numbers, but I know Orange County's up over 20,000 carriers.
Oh my gosh.
And then I think LA County, they just recently got close to maybe 5,000 or 6,000.
And if there's only
maybe
4 or 2 to 4 people working that 20,000 people, they're going to be busy.
Well, yeah, they're very busy. Well, I think part of it is, from my understanding of what's going on in LA County, is I'll be honest, it's not a major concern of mine because I don't live in LA County. And I feel sorry for those people, but I wouldn't live there, just the main reason. But is the city council's against CCW.
Okay.
The current sheriff that came in, the first sheriff who was just there recently, did it to spite the city council.
Villanueva, yeah.
Villanueva.
I don't know. Personally, I like the guy.
It was very great, but he did it for political reasons. And then the new guy came in, and the city council specifically picked him because of that.
Okay.
So they're doing something begrudgingly because the state's making them do it, and they have to do it.
Right.
So it's a have to, but we don't want to. And so we're going to make it as difficult
you see that
as
all over the
absolutely
place.
You see that everywhere in California when it comes to guns. Even if they have to, they're still going to ignore it. And we're gonna reintroduce bills that we've already been told we can't do, but we're gonna do it anyways.
I get it. Okay, so defensively minded, you actually have multiple. You start off with core basic classes, right?
We do. Yeah, we run a core basic class, and then from there we have our next logical, what we consider the next logical step is what we call skills class.
Yes,
skills 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
and it really teaches you 3 fundamental things. And the very primary thing we spend a good portion of the class on is stoppages. What happens when the gun doesn't go bang? Because that's the biggest thing that we see with new shooters, is that not understanding what happens if it doesn't do what they expect.
Right.
And then they don't panic, but they're unsure of what the next step is. Do I put it down? Do I ask for help? Do I look down the barrel? What's going on? So I've seen it all.
Come on.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Oh, dude, I've
that
seen
can't
it all.
possibly. Are you serious?
Yeah. I think I told you this story. I think one time we were together, probably a dozen years ago now. I was working the range as an RSO, and I watched a girl shooting a Glock, and she was bang bang. She was doing this.
Right. Oh, okay.
Remember?
Yes.
And,
yes.
and I started walking towards her, and she took that gun and went right underneath her chin to scratch herself with a finger on the trigger, totally unaware of what she was doing. And I talked to her about it. She's like, no. I'm like, go look, and there's a black mark from the barrel right there. Freaked her out. Though people do that. I mean, I've had people at the range, walk their gun out. And they got past everybody to the front counter, and be like, hey, this isn't working. And then like, hey, this isn't working. And we're like, we have a very constructive talk with them about the safety issues involved there. But or rental, they like to do that too. When they borrow a rental gun, they'll bring it back. They're like, this doesn't shoot and it's loaded type of stuff. It's like, okay. So we walk them through that. We work through all the different stoppages. They learn the difference between stoppages and malfunctions, the proper terminology for things.
Right.
We like to use plain language. We encourage people to use the language that they understand, but we also want them to get the correct firearms terminology, so that when they're talking with somebody else, they go into a store, they're educated, and they get treated. We will find that you get treated better if you actually can talk the language, because there's, in any industry, in any career path, there's always a language to it. So
Clips, mags,
yeah.
type of stuff. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yes. Clips feed magazines feed guns. Yes. So we go through all that, and then they run drills on that. So type 1, type 2, type 3, we run them drills. We set their guns up for failure, and they learn how to do that. And it's not going to make you instantaneously proficient,
right?
But it gives you that fundamental confidence that when you're at the range by yourself and something happens, you're like, oh, hey, I just did this in class. I know what to do. And if the first time they're successful getting their gun running by themselves, it's a really good moment for a shooter. That's a pivotal moment. That's a door they walk through, and that builds up their confidence. So now they're, anything you can do to make them want to come back to the range and shoot more and become more proficient, put the time, energy, and effort into it, I think is valuable for shooters, because they're going to do one of two things. They either, out of the core basic, there's kind of three shooters. There's, I just want to try this because it's been on my bucket list. I want to know what it's all about. So they do it, they have a good time, and they'll never come back. It's like, oh, I did it. I shot a gun. I'm happy. I got my photo. That's all I needed out of life. And that's good. And you have other ones that are there for very specific reasons. And then they'll push through and they'll go, okay, I'll go to skills class. And maybe after that, they go, okay, I feel a little more confidence when I go shooting with my friends now.
Right.
I don't want to own a gun, but when I go shooting with my friends, at least I don't feel completely outside the circle. I'm a little bit more inside the circle. And now maybe eventually as they get more, if they shoot more with their friends, they'll go that next step. But they want to feel proficient with their friends, right? So they do that. And then you have other people that are, hey man, I'm here. I either want to shoot competition, I want to carry a CCW, I want to be really good at home defense and not think about it. So I want to train. And those people just dive in.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, what's the next class? What's the next class? What's the next class?
Right.
When can I get my CCW?
Right.
And it's like, well, let's get you through the system. So we do have a whole pathway for people to come through. So obviously we do skills. We work on stoppages. Then we reemphasize trigger, because trigger is so fundamentally important to success.
You think?
So we build their grip on the gun they've chosen. And I'm specific about on the gun they've chosen, because your grip is different on a carry gun than it is on a full-size gun or anything. So they learn that. So we build their grip on the gun that they're using, and then we work on trigger. So they'll do some trigger drills, and we get them as a brand new shooter, maybe just out of basic, because we typically run the skills within 2 weeks of the basic. So they're still, hey, it's in their head and they're fresh. We'll have them shooting out to 15, 20 yards by the end of class.
Very cool.
And hitting targets well because of their trigger. Yeah. And then we get them into basic gun movement. So they'll just do a standard 3, bang, 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 kind of do that.
So you're taking your skills and actually applying them now.
Yeah. So we'll do the off the X with them in a stationary manner. It's interesting because the skills classes are always mixed. We split the range because we always get a very good sized number of advanced shooters and good fundamental intermediate shooters coming back because they want to work on those things.
Yes.
I'm very proud of those people. So they do it at slightly different distances. When we do the off the X, they're an active drill. They're moving back and forth between targets, and our basic shooters are with the instructor, standing in front of a target, but their gun's failing on them on a repetitive rate, and they're changing magazines. They're having to work the gun and identify what's wrong and do that. So they practice it in the stall, and then we put them down range, and they do it under a little bit of pressure, artificial pressure.
Time.
Okay. And they have this person over here running back and forth between targets,
Move your
changing
ass.
magazines, and somebody's screaming at them, move, 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 and don't stand there moving. And they're like, what am I doing? And the instructor's like, it's okay, just slow down, take the magazine, So they get that done, and they repeat that. So we don't do anything once in skills. Everything we run through 2, 3, 4 times.
Right.
And then they'll do some trigger work. We'll practice that for a while, and then we'll get down to here's some targets, and this is how you move. We start the good basic fundamentals of moving, working our hips, keeping the gun up in our face, keeping the tight sight picture, swinging the eyes from target, and they get to shoot bang, 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 change the magazine. So they're repeating those tests, changing the magazine, reloading the gun, unloading the firearm, all the things they don't learn in basic.
So that 1, 2, 3 skills actually moves into reps then.
You can either, not typically, I mean, it can. Typically, people coming into 1, 2, 3 skills either are borrowing a gun or they have a firearm.
Oh, okay.
But they may not have a holster yet.
Okay.
So their next step would be handgun fundamentals, which is typically a Saturday class because it's a 3-hour class.
Wow.
And that will take you, that's a mix of people in holster, new to holster, or no holster. So you can come in any of those conditions. We'll teach you how to draw from a holster. We fundamentally, one of the very first things we do in that class is draw. How do you draw correctly from whatever it is you're carrying? So we have a mix of people in CCW. We have people, full battle rattle. They come in however they want to come in.
Right.
Or they're like, I don't have a holster or anything. Okay, well, you're going to learn all the positions in low ready, compress ready, all those things.
Very cool.
So we learn all those, and trigger discipline with an instructor next to them, and then they have a table they put their gun on. That way they're still involved. They're still learning things they need to learn, and they're still getting those reps in of presentations. So we work on holster and presentation. Obviously, deeper trigger. We get more in depth on trigger, more like we did the other day.
Yeah.
That was kind of a light version of a trigger class.
Yeah.
So we do that.
No, that was. I mean, you got the essentials. Put it all together, all in a gift wrapped in a small little package, and shoved it down our throats.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, it was basics, a foundation that I have, but the thing is that it came at us so fast that I appreciated that, and it worked out quite well.
We didn't bore you, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I sat there like, half of this stuff I can't do.
Yeah, I noticed that. We'd be doing a 4-count trigger, and bam! Paul, come on, slow down a little bit. It's not 2, 4, 6. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4. But you were good. You slowed down a little bit.
That's how I work out, right? Yeah. They say, well, count on the way down, right? Well, my count is really fast, so I don't have to hold it very long, right? So
you slow down a little bit in life, buddy. Appreciate things. But so they'll do that, and then they get typically an introduction to moving with a firearm. So the introduction,
which is
in
very
fundamentals,
important,
which is the two, moving to shoot and then shooting while moving. So it's a very just kind of a cursory. Here's a flavor of it.
Yeah.
Because we have a class, then we have fundamentals moving, and we have fundamentals. So you can do fundamentals for a while because we'll have fundamentals handgun. We have a red dot class, so which is one of my most popular classes. It teaches you how to shoot from a red dot. It's again typically a 3-hour class, and it's how to because everybody wants to do that. How do we shoot?
Yeah. So what is that? How does that? What entails in that class? So you teach them
shoot from red dots.
Just pulling out how to find the red dots, or just here's your red dot.
We turn the lights off and you try to find your red dot. No, no, it is. It's everything because your draw stroke can be modified for red dot. We actually the first thing we do in that class is the very first thing I do in most of my classes, especially my lower end classes, is we run these black ball targets, and they're great targets because you cannot see your hits on target. So it frustrates new shooters because they're all trying to figure out where to hit, and it teaches more advanced shooters to stay up on the gun and trust your sights. So we do a quick analysis and see where everybody's kind of at with the red dot, and we're watching them. How long are they wavering the gun around? How long does it take them to break their shot? How many under their breath if I can't find my dot, or because you can hear all that. The people are so vocal. It's fun. So we do that. We assess that, and then from that we can kind of figure out. And two, we're trying to see where they're putting the gun. Are they moving their head a lot? Are they doing this? Or are they that? And that tells you a lot if you're paying attention as an instructor with what they're doing. So you take that. So our next step then is to test if they have the ability to stereo the red dot. Which to do that, we tape up the front of the red dots. So we cover them up. We teach them how to. We're not right now. We don't work initially on the bringing the gun into play. We just get it up.
Right. And
can they stereo around it, which means can they see the target and get the stereo vision working so the dot appears. So you can't see through it.
So instead of one eye, you're trying to get both eyes.
And we're trying to, right then and there too, we're trying to diagnose two things. Are you capable of doing that? Because not everybody is.
Right.
There are a number of limitations with our eyes that keep us from being able to do that.
Oh, absolutely.
So if we discover those limitations, then we can adjust their presentation for them.
Right.
And that's really key for us, is that personal attention that, I try not to, this is the only way to do things, because it's not. If this person's not physically capable because of whatever issue,
right,
then they can't do what everybody else is doing. So you have to go to them as an instructor and be like, okay, well, let's work a system out for you.
Right.
Which empowers them. Yeah. Which is really important for them. And then they can participate and have a great time in class. Because I've had that. I had a student recently in one of the red dot classes. They were very, very frustrated. They were getting very frustrated because we were doing the stereo thing. They couldn't see that very well.
Okay.
So we were giving them another way to do it, and they had to be over here a little bit. But what was interesting, they could center of the face it, but the way their left eye was responding, even though they had the gun straight, because what we were asking them was, if you put the gun straight, you shouldn't really be able to see significantly down the sides of the gun.
Yes.
Right. If you can see the side over here, then obviously I'm pointing there. If you see here, I'm pointing there. Well, they were pointing this way, and they could still see this side of the gun, but they couldn't see this side.
So you're talking about someone who is right hand dominant.
They're right hand dominant.
But left eye
weird. Yeah, it was really odd. So we kind of worked with them a little bit. And we ended up, the best solution for them was to close their left eye and still center their face. If they closed their left eye, they were right eye dominant. It was a weird thing, but their eye was playing tricks on them. So they had some eye issues. They were in glasses and contacts and things of that nature.
Right.
So we came up, I don't remember the exact solution for this, but it was close one of their eyes and go back over their eye, and they became very, very proficient with red dot.
So you, how do you fix that? So you're looking at a little bit more results. So when they shoot, you're looking for accuracy, and then
we're looking for where they're hitting, because the first question you ask them is, well, where's the dot on the target?
Okay.
Well, it's where I think where it's supposed to be.
Okay.
And then they break their shot, and if you first you analyze, okay, it's not a grip issue, it's not a trigger issue.
Yeah.
You're watching the gun.
Yeah.
And they're breaking the dots. So you start breaking things down, and we start questioning them, like, what are you seeing on the gun? Tell me when the gun's up, what do you see?
Yeah.
Well, I see this side of the gun. Okay, well, that's pointed at the target this way, but you're telling me that,
Right.
So you figure stuff out. So it's, it could be, I've helped people with all kinds of different issues. I don't, I'm not an ophthalmologist. I don't know all the eye issues that are going on.
No.
But they're prevalent, but I have corrections for them all. So we can get them corrected.
That's insane.
Well, yeah, we find a system that works for them.
So if you had a class of like 15 or 20, you're doing that 15 or 20 times.
Not typically, no, but you might do it 3 or 4 times.
Oh my goodness!
It's really, actually, what's funny is the last couple, stepping back to the core basics, the last 2 core basics we've had, it's about 33% of the population that's cross dominant.
Yes.
The last class we had 12 students in it, and 9 of them were cross dominant. And the class before that,
changed.
Yeah, the class before that, we had 15 in there, and 7 or 8 of them were cross dominant.
Right.
It's like, I don't know where all these cross dominant people are coming
like
from.
50%
so,
now.
50%, yeah.
50% out.
So, which is fun because we teach them how to shoot cross dominant. But so, and then a lot of times you're getting people who got properly taught how to shoot cross dominant or improperly taught how to shoot cross dominant, and then they're trying to involve a red dot. And that, it depends again on because eye dominance is really not an eye thing, it's a brain thing.
Yes.
It's 100% a brain thing. And again, we have to get over that hump with people.
Right.
Everything we teach at Defensively Minded with Pinnacle is really a lot about the brain. You've been in some class where we talk a lot about the brain and how it functions and how we can work against that, the things it does that hinders us, that it thinks it's helping us, and it makes things more difficult.
So if you're dyslexic, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Well, because your brain it's crossed, wired to the other eye, and then the eye, and then when it starts doing this type of thing, I don't know how you figured that stuff out.
Well, probably because I'm all of some of those things. I'm legitimately a left-handed person, but I shoot right-handed because I'm right eye dominant. So I'm already cross dominant. First off, I shoot fine left-handed, because I train a lot single-handed left-handed. But I always found when I came up, I was taught obviously how to shoot right-handed. Through my entire life, it's always been like, you should be right-handed. In school was, be right-handed.
Right.
And guns were set up when I started shooting. There was kind of 2 choices of guns. There was revolvers or 1911s.
Yeah.
Well, 1911s are not exactly left-handed friendly firearms, so that's what I started on.
Right.
And so I learned how to shoot right-handed.
But don't you think that was from whoever was teaching you, was showing you this way? Well, my right side is actually your left side.
Correct.
You think that's how you learn?
The only thing I can say this because I'm left-handed. The only thing that left-handed people can do a really good job of teaching right-handed people certain things like tying shoes, because when you're watching me do it, it's the correct way.
It's the right way for me. Yeah.
So, so a lot of times I do teach left-handed. I like in class I would transition left-hand because it allows them to see what's going on and it translates for them.
Yeah.
But I can, also when you're standing next to somebody, you and I are together, you want to see me manipulate the gun right-handed.
Okay.
So if I'm in front of you teaching you, sometimes it benefits me to do it left-handed because that makes sense. There's no turning the stage.
Right.
If I'm next to you, then I need to do it right-handed.
Yeah.
So being already cross-dominant to a certain extent, having horrifically bad vision for a shooter. I mean, when I was in kindergarten, I was in glasses.
Yeah.
I have a very weak left eye, so I'm right eye dominant from my brain standpoint. But my brain doesn't function that way. I was younger, suffered from a bit of dyslexia, so I got a lot going on up in my noodle.
Yeah.
So,
you think?
But I think that's really benefited me as an instructor because number one, I come from a standpoint of yes, I've been there, done that.
Right.
I've gone from shooting in glasses, physical, prescription glasses to contacts, which
Right.
is, and with contacts, because I also had an extreme astigmatism, they were weighted. So anytime you tilted your head down, they're brought back up again. Nothing was in focus until until the contacts came back in.
Yeah.
So that did spur me to go and get a LASIK, which I did. Okay. And I had great doctors that were awesome. And we set up my LASIK because they're like, do you want to do monovision or stereo? I'm like, no, I don't want mono. I want stereo.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, where do you want your vision to start?
Yeah.
So we brought plastic guns in.
Yeah.
And we set that all up. And my vision, because this is before red dots,
right.
my vision started at my front sight.
Right. 24 inches, yeah.
Right there. So they set my close-up vision to start at my front sight.
Mine's focused right there, and then
yeah, and I can see at 25 yards somebody shooting at 22.
Blurry everywhere else.
You're a little. How do you see that? It's because I can see it. I have great distance vision, but everything from here back is.
Oh man!
So I don't walk around now with I have readers everywhere in my life. They're everywhere.
So on your website, you have a lot of drills that I've noticed, and these are actually free.
They are, yeah. Well,
I mean, I
get complaints about that. People are like, your classes are so economical. Range Day 50. Range Day 50 is a good drill. Yeah. If you want to not spend a lot of money on ammunition, but want to be proficient at something.
Yes.
I find two things happen with people. They come in, they shoot a lot. They're very proud of that. They come in, my box is empty. And you look at their target, you're like, that's wonderful. You didn't learn anything.
You could have done that with a shotgun.
You could have done with a shotgun. You didn't perfect anything except reinforce your negative habits.
Yeah.
So the Range Day 50 was, hey, you've got 20 minutes of time. You want to come to range. You want to be efficient at it and clean.
Right.
You come through 50 rounds. You walk through it. You can modify it as you want to if you're not comfortable shooting offhand or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we walk through these drills and it steps you out to maintain your accuracy and consistency. So when you're doing download one of the packets, they're great. The instructions are listed. The target's 8.5 by 11, so everything prints on normal paper. You don't have to do anything special. You can print as many copies as you want, and then come and run it. And you can keep them and score them and look at them. So that's just one of them. We've got that one. We've got trigger drills. We've got offhand drills. We've got single hand drills. We've got a ton of stuff up there.
Oh, I think it's great. This range days, I just changed the distances to meet IDPA standards, right? So 7, 10, and 15.
Got to be different about everything.
Right. But you have a throttle up.
Yeah, the throttle up drill is a lot of fun. That's how to increase your cadence within range standards. So that one's fun. You just kind of walk through the sequence and you start things, and it's a lot of it is coming back from drawing or compressed, depending on what you're doing for that day.
Right.
Single-handed, multiple rounds of fire, reload and fire. And we try to do a lot of reloading and fire, and because that's a real buster for a lot of people. When you bring that gun off a target, manipulate it, and put it back, they're not consistent.
Right.
Because to them it's they're changing their draw somehow. So we're always working on how you build that consistency of your workspace is one place. And it should be very similar to the place that you initially start your grip when you come out of the holster. So we're always working on that efficiency and consistency. So, drawing and reloading, try to stay in the little circles.
I think this is phenomenal. So if you're new, you just purchased a gun, how does somebody get a hold of you?
Well, the best place to go is just go to defensivelyminded.com.
There you go.
So you go to defensivelyminded.com and you'll get to our website and you can check stuff out. I mean, We've got, you can go and check out instructors, you can go and check out videos of classes. If you're trying to figure out what gear to buy, we have a whole section on gear. I mean, everything from CCW gear to more of the outside holster battle rattle gear. All that stuff on there I actually use or have used.
And you do.
So there's nothing on there that I haven't put my hands on, I haven't played with, I haven't touched, and trust me, I've got so much crap at home. It's you have boxes of stuff.
We all have tubs.
We all have stuff.
Tubs, yeah.
Stuff. It was funny. Like last year, I cleaned out 3 tubs and took them to work, and you just elf it and leave it in the lounge for the staff, and it magically just disappears, right? And then you see the staff like a couple days later, just walking around with something, which is great. I love that for them. But it didn't seem to make a dent. I was looking at it this year, going, I didn't buy anything between the time that I got rid of all this stuff. Right. But it didn't make a dent. At the moment, it made the dent, but I have to do it again. It's just I get given stuff. People are like, here, try this, or I look, or people go, here, I recommend. What do you think of this? Yeah. And before I'll voice my opinion, I will purchase with my own money and I'll try it.
Yeah.
And I'll try it. And
how often do you do that?
I don't know. It depends on how often people come to me. Sometimes it's frequent. I remember last year, I don't know, I had about 3 or 4 things I was trying out and running, different pouches or different
to be
holsters
more efficient, or.
Well, I take a certain pride and responsibility that as a firearms instructor with people that I teach on a regular basis, classes that I do, I think it's my responsibility that if a student comes to me and asks my opinion about something, I give them an educated opinion. So if I can't, I will be honest with them.
Right.
And if I think it's interesting because they find it interesting, we'll have a discussion about it. A lot of times I will guide them another direction, because as a new shooter, you get really sucked up in the gear of it all, right?
Is there anything else?
There's nothing else.
Okay.
You were at Lead and Coffee, and there's a wonderful student. She's been with me for a long time. Her name's Heather.
Yes.
She's awesome. She's been with me since Ladies Shooting League. And of course, the first thing, I think this is maybe her second Lead and Coffee that she's been to.
She's awesome. Yeah.
She's awesome. She comes up, she's like, "Where's the hats? Where's the hats?" She's all about the hats. So she's pretty funny. She loves, she would wear a Lead and Coffee hat if I made one. She also wanted coffee, but disclaimer, Lead and Coffee, we used to have coffee at the range.
Yeah. So what happened there?
COVID killed everything.
Oh man.
So yeah.
Actually, I believe it was it not her that actually said that hey, so where's the coffee?
Yeah, she did. We do donuts. 99% of the time at Lead and Coffee, we have donuts, because one of the other students, Curtis, who's phenomenal, he brings donuts.
Lead and donuts. Well, Lead and Coffee's not lead. It was kind of a play on, it was one of those midnight inspirational things. Like, I need a new class. What should we call it? Lead and Coffee? That'd be funny. Lead and Coffee. Because it was really like Lead and Coffee, whatever. Because it was in the morning. The classes are in the morning, hence the coffee, right? Yeah.
They used to be a little bit earlier, and then life changes. So 9:30, people get in there, which amazes me is that those classes are as full as they are for a weekday class at 9:30 in the morning. What are these 17 people doing in life? Because I want that job that you can be out playing on the range at 9:30 in the morning. I mean, I have to be there, because it's my job. But we're, I mean,
you're the one that puts it.
Well, yeah, but it's because I was already there. It's like I'm at the range, and I'd rather be down teaching a class than doing paperwork. So if I come up with the class, then I don't have to do the paperwork. That was the whole emphasis behind it. Was it's like, it gave me an excuse to be on range and shoot.
Yeah.
And then it turned into like this big thing. And it's like, how do all these people not have to be anyplace on a Tuesday morning? Which I appreciate. It's great, but it's like, I always wonder, what do they do?
Well, the Zoom doesn't start until 11 anyways. So.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So we have the through FT3, you can visit Lead and Coffee on the FT3 website. So go to ft3tactical.com. Go to training. There's Lead and Coffee. We also have I also run the rifle challenge through that, which is a ton of fun. Amazing. I think there's one coming up. I think there's one coming up next month.
Yes.
We had to take a little hiatus there for a while because we had our schedule gotten so full that I couldn't find a place for it. So it's sometimes on Tuesday nights now, and sometimes it's on Saturday mornings.
So if for the subscribers out there that have like AR platforms and so forth,
or anything, and you can run anything.
PCC,
PCCs. I've had guys run it with a M1 Korean era carbine. I've had guys run with Garand's 308s.
This is indoor now.
This is indoor.
You might want to double up on your ear protection, but just shooting like an AR, especially going through, it's like a mini IDPA match.
It is a little mini IDPA match.
You have like multiple targets out there, mechanical holdovers.
Well, they're all based on skills. So when I look at a challenge like this, the first skill you're going to run is your holdovers. Because we have you shoot a series of stuff really close. So you got to understand, because if you miss the target, you don't get the points. So it is scored. It's timed and scored. You get a score sheet at the end. That's kind of just more for fun and for your own challenge. So we have that. And then we come back and we do
you have the sniper.
We got the sniper one, which is like, how can you sniper at 25 yards? Well, if you're only shooting a 1-inch target at 25 yards with non-magnified optics.
Right. So you're shooting optics, right? Or a red dot, right? So how the heck are you supposed to focus? And then you have the guys that actually have scopes, right? But you can see them kind of...
They still tank it.
Problems with the close quarter shooting, right? So, but for me, it has a variety of everything.
Yeah, we try to do. We do the sniper, we do the offset, we do some multiple target rapid reload stuff, and we do a lot of moving.
Yeah.
And now we've actually involved, because we had so many requests for it. They're like, why can't we bring our pistols? So now it's really the rifle handgun challenge.
Right.
So everything you do with the rifle, you then repeat with your handgun, except for the sniper. The sniper's the only thing we don't repeat with the handgun, but all the other drills is rifle and then handgun, and then it all accumulates at the end with this big runaround. That's
you got it. You have to go and experience for yourself, because for us, just talking about it just doesn't.
That's a fun class.
That's insane. The first time I saw it, I'm like, this is insane.
It's fun. And plus it's fun too, because the kind of the challenges that I typically shoot it. So everybody's like, oh, I got to try to beat Michael, which is great. If somebody, I'm not there to win. I'm there to, I demo basically. I run it so you can see what it is. Because a lot of people are first time like, I don't understand. What am I doing? I'm going to walk you through it.
Yeah.
So we walk through it and then I'll demo it.
It gets a little nerve wracking. So
what's that?
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. Yeah. Think about it for me. I got like 15 people there with rifles and handguns, and so it is fun.
Logistical nightmare.
It is a logistical nightmare. Yeah.
So
shout out to my wife, because she's phenomenal. She comes and scores this thing for me.
Yes.
Which is awesome. Yeah. She's a math person. She loves that stuff. But it's like,
she's really good.
If I had to do that, I mean, I've had nights that, I'm on 15 hours at the range. I go and do this thing. I got to shoot and score it because she's not shown up before. That's brutal.
But she's a master at herding cats.
She is. She's great. Yeah. She's a great cat herder. She helps me out. And then all my volunteers who come in and help me out with stuff is I couldn't do half the stuff without them.
So let's wrap this up. Personal thoughts on can you overtrain?
Can you overtrain? You can overtrain incorrectly, and you can overtrain on the wrong things. That's why you need a good coach to focus your training if you're already training well, or you need a really good instructor to set you on a good path and teach you the homework. And if you dedicate yourself, if you do the homework assignments and you do what they ask you to do and spend that extra time, then you build on that training and keep moving forward. So
there you go.
It depends on how you work out.
So that's Defensively Minded. Check them out. They're on the website. I'll provide the email or the website address.
DefensivelyMinded.com.
There you go.
All one word.
You can take a look at that, and you can talk to Michael if you have any other questions.
Yeah, reach out to me on an email. I love chatting with people about stuff.
Go. A special shout out to our channel membership. This is your support. Busy at work. Please consider being a part of our shooting community, building relationships around safe gun practice and IDPA competition. My name is Paul G, and this is
Michael Hernandez.
Please be safe, and we shall see you on the range.
Speed Kings.
Like, share, subscribe. You are amazing.
What else are we doing?
I don't know, but I got a whole bunch of these things.